Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Vegas 77. I'm Paul Shaughnessy. Producer Megan is on the sticks. Loser of a shoey bet, Cody Saftic, is on the line. This episode of the Dogger Pass podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Cody, hilarious.
Ugh.
I mean, I went back to make sure. I'm like, we had a shoey bet on that, right? And I went back and watched the clip, and you were just like, here's the thing about Aguilar. He's never knocked anybody out. And what did I say? I said, wouldn't it be a great opportunity to get your first knockout against somebody with no chin like Shannon Ross? And boom, what? One punch, dead. I wish I would listen to myself. There was like a plus like 750 or so on Aguilar knockout. That was the spot. That was the spot, man. But I mean, at least I get to watch you drink out of a shoe, which, you know, warms the cockles of my heart a little bit.
Yeah, again, my inability to say no to even the greasiest of shoey bets or just any bet in general, just, you know, my competitive nature, I suppose, led me to Shannon Ross. Yeah, quite fitting that not only did he lose, he got knocked out, like you said, by a guy who never knocked a guy out and did so in 17 seconds. I don't feel bad about doing the shoey because of that. I feel bad because, like, the whole card for me as a whole, not very good. And UFC 290 was stacked. Nice card. Looked good. This card looks awful. I got thrashed last week. This week, zero expectations. We'll probably do a lot better because that's just the way things go. But anyways, self-inflicted. Did it to myself. Nobody to blame. We're going with a booty, Paul, because the shoey's just not quite enough.
Oh, that thing's dirty. Hold that up for the camera. Let us see. Like, has that been in the barn? Has that been in the barn before?
This has been in combat, Paul, right?
Attaboy.
Lord knows the things that this thing has walked on. But
I love it.
Yeah, unfortunately. And you know what? This is a throwaway UFC Fight Night show, so why else are people tuning in? No, just to see Cody suffer. But hopefully Cody suffers, and then him and Paul have a good time breaking down some fights and pick some winners, because there's some violence on this card. We just got to get on the right side of it. You and I, you can break it down as I do this thing, but this is like a loser leaves town card. Contender Series is right around the corner. A lot of these guys, if you lose, you are gone.
There are people on this card, Cody, you were right, and we were talking about before you got on the air, or before we, hit the record button, and we're just like, this looks like, this is a loser leaves town card. Through and through. There are like people like Alexander Munoz. I assume that he had either retired or
Ashley Evans Smith. Like, what?
Ashley Evans Smith is another one. It's just like people who haven't fought in so long. They're like still on. I guess they're probably still getting like some sort of like medical benefits and stuff. And the UFC's like, gotta get them out of there because they have a fresh crop of Contender Series people coming in a month. This is an ugly fight card. There's always gonna be some nice little ones like that shoey. He's getting after it. That is a nice one. Attaboy. Barn shoes and all. We're going the opposite direction. I basically started cheating with having like little children's rubber boots, and Cody just like ups the ante to an even more disgusting shoe. I respect it. Let me tell you something, Paul. No one's tuning in to see a clean. Why not just drink it out of a pint glass? If I'm going to go to a Walmart and buy a children's size boot, which is nice and clean, Paul Shaughnessy's figured it all out. There's no holes in it. There's no leakage. Mm-hmm. He probably gives it a little turn at the end to clear the bubble. Everybody has a good time. I poured water in it and swished it around and then drank the water last week to make sure it was clean for the next time.
Yeah, I brought myself a secondary beer as well, just to wash down the awful aftertapes of shame and regret. But anyways, let's try to turn a new page here and jump into what is potentially, and I know people have said this in the past, it's the worst card they've ever seen, and this and that. People love to complain. These cards are, for the most part, pretty good. This card is like no better than a LFA card. It's like no better, for the most part. It's no better than your regular high-end regional show. So in fact, some regional shows got UFC veterans on them. Those shows are pretty dope. This is a UFC card. It feels like half of these guys are not UFC veterans. So Anyways, let's jump into it.
Yeah,
Pal.
dude, like I watched Bash on the Beach. I forget the name of XMMA or something like that a few weeks
That
ago,
was a good card.
maybe a month ago or so, and it's just like in
Saeed Kakramanov, brighter future than
Scoggins was
anybody
on it.
outside of member maybe Jack Maddalena, right? Like he's dope. He got thrown down
Yeah.
this week. The rest of it, woof.
Yeah, I mean, like that card, in fairness, may be on par with what we're offering here. But pitter patter, let's get at her. We got Holly Holm taking on Mayra Bueno Silva in the main event. Minus 180 for Holm, plus 155 for Silva. Gonna be probably. I mean, it's probably gonna be your classic Holly Holm fight where she's so technical, strong on the feet. She can mix in wrestling a little bit. I don't know if she wants to do that early in this matchup because MBS has shown some serious submission abilities. But at the end of the day, MBS sounds like an autoimmune disease or something. MBS at the end of the day used to fight at 125 pounds. She's fighting at 135. Holly Holm would never make 125 pounds. She's got 2 inches in the height department on her, a few inches in reach. She's 41. The performances aren't exactly at the championship level that they used to be, but I think experience wins out here. She can win with volume on the feet. Prize Picks has that at like 90.5 significant strikes. That number I feel is relatively tight because I think that this fight's gonna be very, very similar to like the Ketlin Vieira fight, where Holm doesn't really need to use takedowns. She may be able to like sprinkle in 1 or 2, but it's like her safest path to victory here is staying at range, countering when MBS tries to break distance, and winning the fight that way. I expect a slow, tepid affair, 25 minutes, and Holm gets her hand raised. There was like minus 145s on like Tuesday. I was considering adding it, and then the market moved to minus 180, moving towards minus 200. I feel like I kind of missed my shot to actually bet money on this main event, but Holly Holm will be the pick. What's your take here?
Yeah, I got to go with Holly Holm as well. Minus 180. Women's MMA, again, Pat May would probably tell you don't want to be paying that price tag. And at 40 years old, if you're an ageist, you probably don't want to be paying that price tag as well. But she's like a Rolex watch, man. She just keeps going. And as time has progressed, it's like everything's going to start slowing down for her. I feel like Holly Holm has very high ring IQ and his ability to like change her game. Here was someone that was exclusively a boxer, kickboxer, good counter puncher, someone with a good high kick. And now as the years have progressed, she's wrestling a lot more. She's using a lot more cage control. She's kind of conserving herself in spots. Still able to matador from the outside, still able to move, but she's booked in a lot of 5-round fights. She's able to fight those 5 rounds. She's always in very good shape, good condition. It's the fact that she's 10 years older, right? I think that's the biggest concern. When I look at Mayra Bueno Silva outside of having those 10 years, yeah, she's got some good submissions, but you'd have to have some great submissions to take down Holly Holm and then submit her, right? She has been submitted in the past, Holly Holm has, but not in a very long time. And again, not at the highest level. So in terms of experience, you got to go Holm all day. In terms of style, you got to go Holm. Again, with Silva, looking past at pretty much all of her opponents, she's been taken down at least one time in 7 of her last 8 fights. People that have taken her down, Jillian Robertson, who now fights weight class below, Marina Moroz, took her down twice, a boxer from Ukraine. She got taken down by Mero Romero Barella, awful. 3 times by Montana De La Rosa, who's a 115er. Manon Fiorot took her down, even though she's a French kickboxer. And very similar style, Manon Fiorot, to Holly Holm, right? They have that agility from the outside. They move in and out linearly. You have to chase them to hit them. So hard to hit these girls because they move back very well, very good footwork. And at the same time, Manon Fiorot mixed in the 2 takedowns. Well, Holly Holm's got better wrestling than Fiorot, and she's bigger than Fiorot. So she should be also able to mix in the takedowns. Outside of that, she then gets taken down by Wu Yanan. She got taken down by Stephanie Egger. And then her last time out against Lena Landsberg, thankfully, didn't get taken down by Lena Landsberg. But this is an entirely different ballgame, sorry. I think Holm is able to do just that. Matador from the outside, mix in takedowns, win rounds, and then certainly take this fight into the later stages, and then win those championship rounds. Win 3, 4, 5 if you have a bad start. Or win one of the first 2 rounds, and then win 2 of the last 3 rounds. Like, Holm can pace herself. She's got the experience. She's got that high ring IQ, as I mentioned earlier. I think she just puts it together. Likely wins a decision, the way Holly Holm generally does. But I got to go with Holly Holm.
Yeah. It sounds like we're all, yeah. And then on Prize Picks is like 90.5 significant strikes. I don't know. I feel like if it's...
I don't know if I like that.
Well, exactly. I said like it was... It kind of reminded me of the Ketlin Vieira fight, which Holm ended up losing, but was, very, very hotly contested in terms of the scorecards and all of that. But she got 96 there. So it's like there may be a slight edge, but I think she's going to mind her P's and Q's, and like 90 doesn't seem too far off. So I don't really see much of an edge there. Won't be adding the main event to my Prize Picks tickets this week. Moving on down, we've got Jun-Young Park taking on Albert Duraev, minus 150 for the Iron Turtle. Duraev can be had for plus 130. What are your thoughts here, bud?
Yeah, this just seems like a spam bet on the underdog because I think it's going to be a close fight, and I think Duraev could have a lot of success against someone like the Iron Turtle, Jun-Young Park. But man, when I think about it, I think Park's got a lot good going for him here. Mainly Duraev, when you think about him, here's a tough Russian takedown artist. He's a strong physical guy that's going to peel you to the ground and put a mauling on you. And although he is capable of doing that, there's some major red flags across the board for him. So when he jumped on the Contender Series, it was his first fight in 3 years. Guy hadn't fought for 3 years, the prime of his career, and then all of a sudden he jumps onto the Contender Series and wins a first-round submission. His fight with Roman Kopylov, UFC debut, he gasped pretty good in that Kopylov fight. He was right tired in the third round, and he got hurt in the third round. The other thing worth noting is that he went 1 for 9 in takedowns against Roman Kopylov.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Roman Kopylov's issue is that he just really can't wrestle, right? That's his issue. He's not a good wrestler. So for Duraev to go 1 of 9 against him, big red flag. Big enough of a red flag that, we jumped on Joaquin Buckley thinking maybe Buckley could stuff these takedowns and hurt him. And that's exactly what happened. He went 2 for 9 on takedowns against Joaquin Buckley, but ultimately couldn't hold him down, couldn't get him down consistently, had to stand. He's more of a low output guy, gets his eyes swollen shut. I thought I had him figured out. So unfortunately, I give back my profit from that win because I bet Chidi and Jaquani's next time out. And it's a close fight. Again, he goes 2 for 3 for takedowns against Chidi and Jaquani, so a much better result. But there's against like a tall Muay Thai fighter who gives up takedowns fairly easily. You can wear on him. I thought he definitely got hit a lot, definitely got stung a lot. And against Park's going to have a lot higher volume. He's a better striker. He got knocked out by RoboCop, but outside of that, he very much is the Iron Turtle. He's durable. He's got okay cardio. And he's not the easiest guy to take down. You saw 2-3 fights back. I think it's 2 fights back against Eric Anders. Anders had a ton of cage control time. He even did get a few takedowns. Just didn't really hold them down, didn't get much going with the cage control time, and ultimately the judges sided with the volume from Park. Now, a lot of people complained online, man, it's takedowns all day from Anders versus some volume off the cage from Park. That's what we're maybe going to need here if you're going to take Park. You're going to need the judges to side with you because I think he's going to have the volume. I think he's going to do the damage. I think he's going to win the striking exchanges. But there is a plausibility that either Duraev does take him down or struggles to take him down, which I'm thinking happens, but is able to just hold him up against the cage and maybe win some time like that. Now, when I watch back on the Duraev stuff, he's not a hold you against the cage for 15 minutes kind of guy. He wants to fight, right? The guy wants to put on a show. He wants to bang. He wants to club you with that overhand right. He wants to try to mix it up. And so if he tries to fight Park, then it's a good fight. It's a competitive fight. Duraev can win it, but I do think I would ever so slightly favor Park to get the job done. So that's where I'm going to end up going here.
I'm going to lean ever so slightly to Park as well. On Prize Picks, I think they got like 44.5 significant strikes. I like that to go over.
Got the over on that. Yeah,
like Park's been finishing his last 2 fights, but it's because he's been taking on guys who can't really grapple, and he's been taking advantage of the fact that he's a much better grappler than them. Been taking them down and finding rear naked chokes in both of those last 2 fights against Chalulin and Joseph Holmes, respectively. I think that's kind of off the table here. He's not the better wrestler. He's going to be trying to keep it on the feet, use that chin. Duraev hasn't shown me like the type of power. I think this is like one of those fights, kind of like how you were talking about, that goes the full 15. It's real greasy. Real greasy decision, and I'll lean towards Park at minus 150. I don't love the price there because I could see it really going either way with the way judging is these days, to be perfectly honest. Could be an interesting fight. I don't know if there's any odds out for it yet, but you know how like some of these books have like fight ends by split decision. I don't think that this is a bad spot for that. You could see like Duraev getting some takedowns, winning some judges' favors by getting a little bit of control time, but the better strikes on the feet, the more volume. goes to the Iron Turtle, and Adelaide Bird's got her Coke bottle glasses on. She can't really see anything that's going on 90% of the time. So and you got Chris Lee and you got cousin Sal in the venue. Like this seems like the type of fight. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? A split decision. So if you have like fight ends by split decision, like I don't know what the odds on that would be, but they're probably pretty wide, and I don't hate it. I'll be on the lookout at some of my books later in the week to see if it would be worth it. I don't even know how they usually price those ones, but like if it's like 8-1 or something like that, that would definitely be of interest to me. All right, moving on down. We've got Big Norm Dumont taking on Chelsea Chandler. -140 for Big Norm, +120 for Chelsea Chandler. Went back and watched the Chandler fight. She's a bruiser. That performance in her UFC debut, it's just like, goes out there, Stoliar Stinko, like tries to take her down. She kind of reverses it, ends up in mount, pounds her a little bit. And then, multiple times over the course of it, it's like she showed that she at least was like cognizant in those positions, like very, very strong in those positions, tough to move around. Obviously, that was at 135 pounds. That was at a catch weight of 140.
140.
Yeah, and then this is obviously taking up Big Norm, who never makes 135. Usually, when she would have a fight for 135, would come in at around 140. And she's been on a hell of a run there. I think Big Norm's got the technical advantages on the feet here. But I don't know. Chelsea Chandler's a bit of a bruiser, kind of a plotter, kind of moves forward, throws hammers, and I feel like that type of style could cause problems for Big Norm here. So ever so slightly, I'm leaning towards the underdog, Chelsea Chandler, to get the job done here. What are your thoughts? And it really comes down to like the price here, like -140 +120. It's like I think it's gonna be a super, super close fight. Chandler showed in that Stoliarenko fight that's like, if she can keep that pace, 38 significant strikes in the first 4 minutes and 15 seconds, like Big Norm's going to be in big trouble. So I'll lean towards Chandler. What are your thoughts here?
The fact that you're leaning with Chandler is not a good sign because you love Big Norm. You always bet Big Norm, and you've had a lot of good results with her. So interesting to see that you'd go the other side. Honestly, I think this is the kind of play that at plus money, you're maybe just going to take whoever it is the value side. Chelsea Chandler looks like she can come in. She looks like she can bang. She looks like she can throw hands. But for 15 minutes in a tough spot against a former, I don't know, title challenger, I don't know how you would put it in this division. And here's the other question. What is this division? Because you got Amanda Nunes just retires, so 45 is dead. Dana White says at the press conference, 45 pretty much dead. Big Norm can't make 45. Chandler fought at 140 her last time out, so they're like, do you want it? She jumps up. So is that an advantage for Big Norm, the only actual featherweight on the roster? Probably. She's got okay takedowns. I wouldn't say she's got good wrestling, but she's got an ability to get her opponents down to the ground. She, slows down the pace of most of her fights. But it's such low volume, Paul, that like someone is going to win on the judges' scorecards just by working and going for it. And it seems like Chelsea Chandler, who I think spent a lot of time at Cesar Gracie's camp with the Diaz's, she's there to fight. She's there to scrap. So again, I think you're going to need the judges to be on your side. You're going to be happy to look for damage and output instead of just cage control and maybe a couple takedowns here and there. But Dumont suffocates there. Chandler probably lands the better shots. How they judge that, I don't know. But if you're going to lean it towards a 50-50 type fight based on which judges are sitting cage side, you want the plus money. You're going Chandler. I should just as a random dog pick. But because you love Big Norm so much, I'll take Big Norm. And if you want to take a shoey bet on it, I'll give you a shoey bet on it.
I don't know if I would be able to live with myself.
Paul
Cody.
Just turning down. I'm taking the stupidest of shoey bets, but Paul, that's fair. That's fair, though. Trust me, I don't actually want to take a shoey bet on this. I just want to see if I could goat you into it.
All right. Well, if you don't want to do it, then sure, I'll do it.
Reverse psychology worked again. Okay, it's on.
Okay, but I'm actually kind of considering this could be like super dumb, but like I'm actually kind of considering the under here. Like a plus.
You think she TKOs?
Or fight doesn't go to the decision, like plus 170. I mean, Big Norm got I can never get it out of the Megan Anderson fight where it's just like somebody brought too much heat to the kitchen and Big Norm couldn't handle it. Chandler,
she's not all that good. Don't get me wrong.
Watching Chandler's fight, watching Chandler's fight back is just like, this could be the person that like overwhelms Big Norm again. It's been a good run for Big Norman. I've been betting her as an underdog, but yeah, the volume kind of scares me with her. It's like, what, out of all of her fight, Ashley Evans Smith, who we'll talk about in the money fight, which is the first fight of the night. That's the only time she's eclipsed 90 significant strikes. Most of the time it's like 68, 65, 38, 52. Like, we're pretty low volume there. And Chandler, if Chandler can keep the pace that she did against Stoliarenko in round 1, I don't even think this is relatively close. So I'm glad to take the shoey bet with you. And I've got an eye for this under 2.5 plus 180. Maybe just fight doesn't go to decision a little bit later. There's plus 155s, plus 170 at one book. I think this could be like kind of a sneaky one that doesn't actually go to the scorecard. Small cage. I don't know. I have to really think about it, but that's when I was watching tape for Chandler that I was kind of being like, all right, this girl throws. This girl's violent. Norm hasn't really taken on anybody who can do much finishing in a while here. So, yeah, that's where my mind's at there.
Fair enough.
Moving on down, we've got Francisco Prado taking on Ottman Azaitar, minus 120 for Prado, plus 100 for Azaitar. I mean, this one's a banger, Code. This one's got violence.
Yeah, that under 1.5 at minus 165 looks pretty decent because they are going to go for it.
My only concern with the under at plus one or minus 165 is like we saw Ottman's chin get cracked, obviously against Frivola, but like this Prado kid, he's 21 years old. He didn't get hit that often against Malarkey. Don't get me wrong. He had a decent account for himself. His takedown defense was pretty dreadful. I will say that, but like he's young, getting a little bit better. I think he hits hard, especially when you look at his regional scene fights. He hits hard enough, but like the big concern I would have with the under 1.5 is what if he's just able to take an obscene amount of damage? We don't really know because we've never really seen him have to take that type of damage over the course of his career. I'm gonna back the kid here. I think Ottman is a little bit stiff, rigid in his striking. It could be really, really, really dicey early, but I'll go with youth in Prado, who I think, people are going to be like, oh, well, Malarkey lost to Naimov. And it's just like, well, Malarkey was dominating the Naimov fight, and that's just MMA being a cruel bitch. Sometimes you can be winning the fight, and then all of a sudden, boom, one shot changes everything. That's kind of what happened there. So he was hanging in there, particularly on the feet against a seasoned veteran in Jamie Malarkey. That fight was on short notice. I'm expecting big improvements from the kid. So Prado will be the pick. I'll be looking for like Prado props for towards the under. I think Ottman, we saw that's like, he makes a really good hammer, but he's not a great nail. Frivola put his lights absolutely out. So I'm going to side with who I think could potentially have the chin to endure a really, really tough, like a really, really crazy war early between these two guys. Prado for me, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Azaitar. I think it's going to be an absolute scrap, under 1.5 type fight. Someone's likely getting knocked out. Yeah, but I feel like Azaitar's at least fought the better level of competition. Now you can say, oh man, he got knocked out by Matt Frivola. Turns out Matt Frivola, not too bad. He had blasted Genaro Valdez, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Then he absolutely blasted my man in this spot. And then he goes on and knocks out Drew Dober, the first guy to ever knock out Drew Dober. Absolutely filthy KO. Damn, you know what I mean? Azaitar is one of these guys that's going to stand in front of you and throw down. And if you're a high-level mixed martial artist that could beat him to the punch, maybe you're going to clip him first and knock you out. If he can beat you to the punch, you're going to have problems. I think with Prado, this kid looks like he can absolutely go, but he's 21 years old. In fact, he turned 21 like 3 weeks ago. He made his debut against Jamie Malarkey at the age of 20, coming off the Argentinian regional scene, which is a tough regional scene with a lot of very physically strong guys. But again, he's a first-round knockout guy. Goes out there, gets that first-round knockout. Ottman Azaitar's had 3 fights in the UFC, all of which have ended in the first round. Mm-hmm. So to say that he's got the cardio advantage, I don't know that he does. Who knows what his cardio is like? And yeah, he's got money and he trains with some good guys. And what was in the bag? I don't know what was in the bag. There's a lot of
Potatoes.
questions concerning. Yeah,
He
potatoes.
came out and said
Yeah,
potatoes.
yeah, potatoes,
Yeah,
potatoes.
potatoes.
Well,
Sure.
now he's getting a tough, hungry Argentinian kid in front of him, ready to throw down. So again, Azaitar is a good striker. I wouldn't say he's a good striker. He's a very powerful striker. He's got very big power in both hands. He's got that capability of knocking you out, and I don't think he knocks out Prado. So is he willing to fight a hard three? I don't know. But this 21-year-old kid from Argentina who can take one hell of a punch, I feel like if this thing gets greasy, he'll end up prevailing down the stretch. So it's not really an underdog play because it's plus 100. But I don't know. I swing back and forth in this one all the time. Azaitar was my initial pick, right? And then the more you think about it, if this thing gets out of that 1.5 round, I think Prado takes over because I don't think it makes it that far. I think Azaitar's fought the better level of competition. A loss for Favola, I'm not going to hold it against him. Guy fights once every 14 months, not good. Tons of red flags across the board, but he's plus 100. He's technically the underdog. So, as much as I don't mind Prado and I can see him winning, and it would be a good live bet if this kid takes an absolute lumping in the first round and survives and makes it back to his stool, yeah, and is a good plus money, yeah, then I might consider taking him because I think he might be able to fight his way back into it. But Azaitar's got to be the pre-fight flop at plus 100.
All right, fair enough. Moving on down. We got another banger. Nazim Sadykhov taking on Terrance McKinney. You want to talk about live bet opportunities, Cody. Nazim Sadykhov is a minus 135 favorite. McKinney can be had for plus 115. McKinney is a ferocious beast for about 5-6 minutes. We were just talking about Favola. Knocked him out in like record time, basically. He comes at you really, really fast. Last time out against Ismail Bonfimi, he kind of tried to like take his foot off the pedal a little bit, and that didn't really work. Because even though he wasn't coming full throttle at him, wasn't like hunting the finish like we had come to know with Terrance McKinney, he kind of still proved that he didn't have, enough cardio the last 15 minutes in an MMA fight. Gets finished in the second round. A lot of money is coming in on McKinney, and I think the safe way to go about this fight is another one from a live betting perspective. If McKinney comes out super, super hard, we know he can't keep that pace. He's had some moments, against Drew Dober, super, super tough guy, where he causes so much damage, almost closes the fight out, and then he kind of just falls off of a cliff. If Sadykhov can take some damage, take those early lumps, you're going to get a much better price than minus 135. But because I know that he can fight, 15 full minutes, if it has to come down to it, I got to side with him at minus 135. Buyer beware. He was down 2 rounds on all judges' scorecards against Evan Elder, and then the landing a perfect elbow to cut open Elder is what
Headbutt.
was it a headbutt?
No, I don't know. I mean, he got lucky on a cut stoppage is the main thing.
Is it lucky or is it a perfectly placed shot? Come on, doctors are there to protect you. And Elder was up 2-0 for sure, but they were close rounds. It was a competitive fight. It's not like it was one-way traffic by any stretch of the imagination. And he still was able to find a finish, throw a shot that was hard enough to break skin in the third round. I don't know if Terrance McKinney can do that, so I'll pick Sadykhov. But I think it's a much better live bet. Make sure his head doesn't fall off in the first 5 minutes. Sadykhov for me. What about you?
I got to go with Terrance McKinney. Terrance McKinney epitomizes the kind of guy that at plus money, you're willing to take a shot on because he's likely going to go for it. And he's got an ability to potentially knock out or submit most guys in this division very early if he chooses to go for it. Now, generally, he's balls to the walls early and often. maybe 3.5 minutes worth of cardio, big explosiveness, tries to put you away. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In the famous words of Harold Howard. Unfortunately for the Bonfim fight, he decides, you know what? I'm not going to bum rush him. I'm going to try to play this fight tactical. All my coaches are telling me, take your time, conserve your energy, pace yourself. So he tried to do that versus Bonfim, and he looked awful. He did not look like himself. He was not explosive. He sat there and let the fight come to him instead of bringing the fight to bomb theme. And as a result, spectacular KO, flying knee. Lost the first round for the record, and then gets KO'd in the second round with the flying knee. So bad news, bad news. But right away, he jumps on social media and he's like, I let everybody get in my head about pace yourself, take your time. I need to go back to what I do best. And that's go out there and try to get the finish. And I think that's what he's going to do here. Because when you look at Sadykhov's got one pro loss. First pro fight, by the way, it's his debut. But he gets rear naked choked in a minute, right? Outside of that, you can make the argument that he's fought softer level of competition. And then the Elder fight, he got knocked down. He got hit plenty. He's down 2 rounds against Elder. And then comes back and gets the cut stoppage. If he can survive long enough, and he's one of these tough, Team Sarah Longo kind of guys, if he's tough enough to last into the 3rd round, then it's hard to imagine McKinney in a 3rd round, to be perfectly honest with you. But the wrestling should be there for McKinney. He should be able to rack up takedowns. You see Sadykhov give up 2 takedowns on the Contender Series against Ahmed Hassandaza, who's not very good. But he gave up 2 takedowns there, and then he gave up a takedown to Elder, who's more of a striker. I think the wrestling should be there for McKinney if he wants to use it. I think the explosiveness, the speed advantage, the power advantage is also there for McKinney if he wants to try to get to the punch, land something, swarm him, and put him away before the kid gets started. I'm looking at that 1.5 because this is a pure violence fight. And with McKinney plus money, I think you could do a lot worse. So I think he gets it right. Clearly, the kid's got a ton of talent. He just needs to figure out how to put it together. Now, he's either going to put it all together or he's going to end up being like Melvin Gillard and have all the talent in the world, but just like zero direction and ability to tie a good game plan together and then, falter out in life. Not in life, but falter out in mixed martial arts. Melvin faltered out in life. I'm not going to put that burden on Terrance McKinney. But in terms of getting back in the win column, I think this kid is promising. He's not one of the guys I expect the UFC to cut because he's very exciting. He just needs to put it all together. And Sadykhov's kind of the right opponent for him to do so. So experience advantage, all those advantages. There's a speed advantage, a power advantage, an experience advantage, a wrestling advantage. Definitely not a cardio advantage. But all those other things, and he's plus money, I'm willing to take a poke.
Fair enough. All right, moving on down. We got Melsik Baghdasaryan taking on Tucker Lutz, -160 for Melsik, +140 for Tucker. Who you got here, bud?
Yeah, so here's probably a bad play from me, but I am flirting with the idea of maybe taking Tucker Lutz. I don't really like Melsik all the same. When you look at Melsik Baghdasaryan, he's one of these rugged, tough Armenian strikers that'll beat yo ace if you stand in front of them. But like a lot of these guys, you either got to have that grappling or you don't. The best Armenian fighters, they got some judo, they got some wrestling, they got some ability to stuff the takedown, keep it up. They're all dangerous strikers, all of them, right? It's how are you going to add that grappling if you want to be a good mixed martial artist. Now, a guy like Armen Petrosyan, he's a great example. He's a world-class, solid K1 level kickboxer, comes into MMA. Nobody wants to stand with him. They all take him down. So you have to work the wrestling, get it up to snuff. It's just like a part of the game that needs to be done. When you look at, say, Edmund Shabazian, here's a kid with all the skills in the world, right? He needs to add that wrestling and add that grappling to his game plan. But he's through Edmund Taverdian, and he spends a lot of time with Edmund Taverdian. And as a result, he never adds those elements to his game, and he fans out. Sure, he's moved to Las Vegas, but it's ingrained in him. He's behind the 8 ball now. Was a young prospect, now is trying to play catch-up. When you look at Melsik, and you can check out social media, Melsik and Edmund Taverdian, they's getting in that work. He wants to strike. He wants to go out there and punch out Tucker Lutz. And if Tucker Lutz stands with him, which he's stupid enough to do, and his wrestling's not all that good, so he probably will stand in front of him, Melsik's going to murder the guy. But if Tucker Lutz can force a wrestling game on him, which certainly he's going to try, I think he could have a lot of success. And at plus money, I'm almost willing to try it out. In terms of making straight plays on this card, in terms of taking a couple small underdog shots late on the PRP, in terms of stuff like that, yeah, dogs are going to come through. Melsik's not the kind of guy at favorite status I want to back up a whole ton. Now, what's going on with Lutz? Well, Lutz has not looked good. Has not looked good recently. He won in the Contender Series. He looked okay in the Contender Series. They didn't give him a contract. Has to come back and fight his second time in the Contender Series. Wins. Again, looks all right. Doesn't look spectacular. Wins all right, but it's the second win in the Contender Series. Bring him into the UFC. Beats Kevin Aguilar. That was an okay fight. It's the last 2 in particular. Pat Sabatini's world-class grappler, not wrestler, world-class grappler. And he easily just beats the break off Lutz, who survived, credit to him, but not even competitive. And then the Daniel Pineda fight, he starts off good early in the first round and then just absolutely gets chin checked at the end of the first. Drops down, hurt. I felt like Pineda stole that round back by hurting him late. And then in the second round, he still hasn't regathered himself. Pineda puts him away. Now, Pineda's a way better wrestler grappler than Baghdasaryan. So, yeah, maybe Lutz just wasn't able to take him down and wasn't able to really force his game plan on him. But it's very concerning to me that if you're going to get rocked that bad, taking on a tough Armenian killer, you're probably going to get chin checked at some point, and I wouldn't want Lutz. So this is like mostly a stay away fight. If you're the pass type of person, just pass altogether. If you're looking to play this low in the priority level, play it that way. But I feel like Lutz got chin checked his last time, didn't like it, realized what he needs to do. Sure, he got submitted, but he was hurt before. Needs to know what he needs to get back to, which is the wrestling, and just try to take him down and out grapple him. And so, probably a bad play. I have zero confidence in Tucker Lutz, but I feel like there's an angle there that he can out grapple him and use some wrestling. So, again, zero confidence out of me, but I got to take some underdogs here and there. I'm going to take Tucker Lutz very reluctantly.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what you said makes sense. I feel like we've kind of missed the Tucker Lutz side. I feel like kind of missed a whole bunch of the value literally on Tuesday. Like the market moved from, Melsik was down as low as minus 200 for like the longest time. And then literally on Tuesday, obviously somebody touted it. Somebody with a lot of subscribers or something, because like the entire market moved all the way across. And now I kind of feel like the market's pretty accurate at, a 60-40 split here. I see a lot of the things that you're saying about Tucker Lutz being able to utilize the grappling. I mean, even Melsik in the Kulabau fights, like he had a very good first round. The volume's always kind of low, but he was landing some good stinging shots there. He has one kick caught, and then it's like all she wrote.
Didn't even get taken down.
Gives up his back, loses, gets choked out. Like it was pretty ugly, man. And then Tucker against Pineda, it's like I don't really like his striking defense. So I feel like Melsik could definitely exploit the hell out of that on the feet, land some massive shots, and cause some big problems for him. So, like, at minus 160, plus 140, I don't know if there's very much meat on the bone. I think the market has corrected itself, sadly. I don't think I'm going to be betting it myself. I'll lean towards Melsik, because I'm just not convinced in Tucker Lutz's wrestling ability. But, yeah, I mean, if I was doing a PRP, this would be all the way at the bottom of the list because I don't have too much.
I completely agree.
I don't have too much confidence in this one at all. But we move on. We got Vikoriia Dudakova taking on Istela Nunes. Minus 200 for Dudakova, plus 170 for Nunes. Nunes is kind of in a bunch of her fights showing us that's like she can definitely cause some serious problems in like the first round, first 7.5 minutes. But her one glaring weakness here, like, I mean, she knocked Vikoriia down. That should have been kind of a telltale sign of what was going to happen with Vikoriia against Denise Gomes, is that, her chin. We may have to remodel or rework our models on the Mexicans can't get knocked out, Cody.
No. Pat model's king. Pat models works above every other model.
The CF dot model supersedes the Mexicans can't get knocked out model. It's
the most profitable model in the game. Okay, so Pat wins again. It's what happens, and that's what I chalked that one.
You know what? I always like CF DOP. I live by it, and I see a lot of money coming in on Nunes here. But my biggest problem here is it seems like the one thing that Dudakova can do is what Nunes struggles with. It's like Sampage, that fight. It's like Sampage was getting rocked all the way around in round one. And then was able to survive and was able to absolutely, win all the wrestling exchanges down the stretch in that fight. And then, like, I believe there was a point loss in round 3 as well, which made, like, the scorecards kind of funny and all of that. But Nunes' biggest struggle is that her defensive wrestling has been a massive red flag. Dudakova was, like, a big-time underdog for her Contender Series fight. She was like plus 250 underdog on the Contender Series. And then now she flips into coming in as a favorite. It's just like, don't get me wrong. I really struggle to see how I would ever bet minus 200 Dudakova. And I imagine on top of that, her by decision is probably close to evens or something like that. Her by decision plus 175 could have some interest to me. Dudakova is going to be the pick. I like going with the CF'd up, but I feel like the one thing Dudakova does well is how she's going to win this fight, which is just, consistently stick to the wrestling game plan and hold control. So Dudakova for me. What about you? Oh, I feel just sick just saying that, Code.
Yeah, listen, if Bellator MMA has taught me anything over the last 6 years, it's that young, hot, blonde, undefeated Russians. No, that usually doesn't go too well. They get exposed at some part. But all blatant sexism aside, and inadvertent sexism, I don't mean it in the slightest, bad way. It's just, she's 24 years old. She's got the look. She's undefeated. She's barely been tested. It's very easy to jump behind Dudakova. Now, if she comes onto the Contender Series, everyone does the tape research. Everyone looks into it. Here's a girl that's fighting amateur as recently as 2019. Is an IMAF champion. Fought a decent level of amateur. But she's still very green. She's very young. Jumps onto the Contender Series and then wins. It was like a plus, somewhere in the 240 range, I believe it was. Plus 240 underdog. So there wasn't a whole lot of support for her. But she goes out and she gets a win over, an fellow undefeated. Only she was an 8-0 Brazilian prospect, I suppose. But yeah, 4 takedowns. 4 takedowns, 19 significant strikes landed. So no ground and pound. No real submission threat. She was able to outpower and take her down. Istela Nunes, meanwhile, is your quintessential Brazilian murderer. She will come and put it on you. She is explosive. She's got heavy power, and she cannot fight longer than, just like you said, about 7.5 minutes. But I'll be damned if this girl hasn't looked somewhat good in all of her UFC fights. Her fight with Ariana Carnelosi, man, she started off good. She actually outstruck her 62-36 overall, but the 5 takedowns, and she gassed out. She loses the fight. But she showed she could strike. She won early. She faded out. Her fight with Sam Hughes. She smoked Sam Hughes in the first round. It is a beating. In the second round, Sam Hughes is like, oh, she's tiring and I can wrestle her. The takedowns come a lot easier. The explosiveness is gone from Istela Nunes. All of a sudden, takedowns work. Sam Page breaks her down. And then just like you said against Yasmin Jericho, knocks her down early. Look good, explosive early. The pace from Jericho catches up with her and kind of fades her down the lane. I don't know that she's able to get her cardio to snuff. I don't think this is someone that's going to fight a 15-minute fight solid. I think she's going to come out. She's going to either knock you out in that first, round and a half or fade out. In the case of Dudakova, she's going to give Dudakova a hell of a fight for the first round. So why would you bet Dudakova at this money line right now? Mm-hmm. If you like her, bet her after the first round. She'll probably get dummied in the first, the way Istela Nunes beats most opponents in the first round. And just like Sam Page, just like other girls in the past, after the first, take her down, grind her out. You'll get a much better money line on this thing after the first round, which I would assume Nunes probably wins. Dudakova needs to slow her down, survive early, get that wrestling going, and I think you're going to have a much better idea as the fight progresses. So much better live betting opportunity. But in terms of the pre-fight flop, so got to make a pre-fight pick. I think I will also take Dudakova, because I think cardio and wrestling are 2 things you need to win a fight. And Nunes is 0-3 in the UFC because she lacks both things. So, can't get behind her. This is good dog money to get behind her, but why not just, I don't know. Personally, I can't do it. Pat's probably right again, but personally, I just can't get there.
Yeah, I think you did a lot better if you grabbed the opener at plus 400. If you took it at plus 300 all the way down to plus 240. Now it's even stomped on even more. It's down to plus 157. Money just keeps coming in on that side, and I understand that she's gonna look probably like the favorite in the first 5 minutes. But at women's 115 pounds, if you can't go a full 15, you're not gonna win too many fights. That's why she's 0-3 in the UFC. It's just it just kind of falls off of a cliff. She sets a pace that she can't keep. So maybe she'll make the adjustments, keep this at range. If she can sprawl and brawl, not let Dudakova take her down whatsoever, she'll look like minus 300 in this spot. But I feel like Dudakova, even if she eats some shots early is going to prevail and be able to secure those takedowns, particularly as Nunes gets more tired. So I guess we'll find out on Saturday. Moving on down, we've got Melk Costa taking on Austin Lingo, minus 200 for Costa, plus 170 for Lingo. Who you got here, bud?
Yeah, I feel like you got to go with Melk Costa. Here's a guy that looks like a first-round power puncher, and for the most part, I think he's probably going to be one of these guys that wants to finish early. Not completely sold on his cardio quite yet. But yeah, he looked good against Thiago Moises. I think he looked good, especially early. Problem is, takedown defense not quite up to snuff. And against a good grappler like Moises, a guy that's got a lot of experience, very, very, very tough UFC debut in every aspect. The 4 takedowns ultimately was his demise, and he gets choked out, rear naked choke at the tail end of the second round. But yeah, again, I feel like his striking is fast, explosive, some combination punching, good right hand. Austin Lingo, meanwhile, it's very basic. It's like straight in front of you, doesn't move a whole lot. 1-2s, jab, maybe throws the right hand. And I think it's injuries. He just doesn't fight a whole lot. He was the LFA champ way back when, but he fought 1 fight in 2020, 2 fights in 2021, took 2022 off, and has had 1 fight in 2023, 4 months ago against Nate Landwehr. In that fight especially, he's coming off of a bunch of cancellations due to injury, and he started off decent against Nate Landwehr. I'd say he won the first round against Nate, but he looks super robotic and choppy. And then in the second round, as soon as he starts to fatigue, Nate's pace is just too much with him. He just swarms him, eventually gets him down, rear naked chokes him. With Melk, I feel like it'll be much of the same. Maybe Lingo stands in front of him early, but he's going to start getting chopped up. He's going to start getting hit. He's only 29. He's in a good gym. He could come out as a better version of himself. But Melk's sophomore outing in the UFC, I feel like he'll have made the better adjustments. He's a little bit faster. He's a bit of a crisper striker. I'm worried about his takedown defense, but Lingo doesn't mix up his wrestling in any of his fights. Mm-hmm. Nor do I think his wrestling's all that good. So the basicness of his 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, I feel like that'll get figured out. Now, in the Luis Saldana fight, Saldana is running circles around him in the first round, and then Saldana tires, and that basic 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, it ends up working down the stretch, simply because, it's more consistent. The judges end up giving him the second and the third round. Melk's got to go out there and fight a second and third, but taking a short notice fight against Thiago Moises, that's a tough task. Getting a full camp to take on Austin Lingo, much better. The money line, don't love. But again, on a greasy card like this, you're going to have to take some of these spots, and I feel like this is one of the ones that I'll be attacking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Costa to get the job done. Over on Prize Picks, they've got 1.5 takedowns for Costa. I don't really think it's really a wrestling fight from his standpoint whatsoever. I think he's got the more well-rounded skill set on the feet. Like, Lingo can box, but, there's a lot more. Like, I don't know. I just don't really feel like Costa's shown in a lot of his other fights that like wrestling is going to be part of his big game plan here. So 1.5 takedowns, like I don't really feel like that's going to be part of his game plan at all. I mean, last time I thought that was Mike Malott, and he caught like 2 kicks and got the fight to the ground, or got the fight to the mat twice. So, buyer beware, fighting's fighting and crazy things happen. But yeah, under 1.5 takedowns for Costa, but I feel like he just wins this fight with volume and with the more precise, technical, damaging strikes over the course of 15 minutes. So don't love the money line. On page with you on that front, but I think Costa gets his hand raised in his second UFC fight. Moving on down, we've got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Bassil Hafez. Maddalena minus 500 favorite. Hafez can be had for plus 375. I went and watched Bassil Hafez. Watched his most recent fight against Cuts, I believe his name was.
Cuts.
Yeah. He fought
BJ Penn's brother once upon a time.
Yeah, he fought him twice. The first time that they fought, he lost a split decision, and then he obviously finishes him in round 3 in his most recent fight. He has a win over Anthony Ivy, who was in the UFC. He didn't look that bad. I know he's got like half decent grappling. A lot of action. Like Jack opened up at like minus like 800 or so, and people have been taking the shot on Bassil Hafez. I don't hate the shot. Like, I think at range, like Della's gonna, strike circles around him. Like, he's a lot more fluid on the feet. But Bassil, it's like at least he's not like a complete one-trick pony. It's like he can, and what he did in that Cuts fight, which I mean, he was basically taking on another grappler. So maybe his striking looks a little bit better because he's not taking on somebody of Jack's ability capabilities up there at all. But he had like decent timing on his counters. He throws with a lot of ill intent, a lot of power behind him. He's built like the guy's super jacked, and he's a good grappler. It's like, I don't hate people's underdog shot on it. I'll wait until weigh-ins just because, Bassil's taking it on short notice here. But, like, I don't hate the Maddalena fade as a concept here. I don't think it's too crazy. Like, if he can, I mean, he's never been knocked out on top of it. It's just like if he can eat some shots early, he's going to get danced around early on in this. But it's like if he can get some takedowns, mix in the grappling a little bit, like I wouldn't be shocked at the very least that this is closer than like the money line suggests at the very least. So I'll pick Hafez on the program, which is crazy. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, honestly, you've seen way crazier things happen. So it seems like week in and week out, the safe pick is just not the safe pick. Jamie Malarkey against Nemov. He'll probably melted. Man, god damn. Look at last week's card. Plenty of examples. Just the favorite gets clipped. He gets put down. In Maddalena's case, I think that he runs circles around him. But at the same time, yeah, Bassil Hafez has never been knocked out. He's a pretty tough guy. This is his Super Bowl opportunity, jumping into the UFC, short notice replacement, making his debut. And if you go and knock out a guy that people are talking about as already being potentially a fringe contender, this would be a huge win. Skyrocket your career forward. So he's got nothing to lose. People expect him to lose. If he goes out there and springs a big one, huge. And his grappling's pretty good as well. He's got a decent triangle choke off his back. He'd beaten Christian Savoy, previously undefeated Canadian prospect. But he's got good grappling, especially off of his back. So Maddalena, good grappler himself, probably got the striking advantage, probably got the grappling advantage. Bassil's dangerous everywhere. He's got a nasty overhand right. He's got some decent power. He's got some good cardio. You mentioned the first time he lost to Evan Cuts by split decision. It's a 5-round fight. Mm-hmm. The second time, also scheduled for 5, he puts him away inside the distance. So the guy can keep on chugging along. And I think that if you're thinking about betting him now, the best bet would be bet him after the first, right? Bet him after Maddalena. And as I'm mentioning, JB Markey just got sparked, and a bunch of guys last week get sparked, and Guram Kudalit's another perfect example. He's like a minus 700 favorite. Should he be that big? Probably not, but he is. He's playing punchy kicky, but he's that big of a favorite. Wins the first 2 rounds. Not like he dominates the first 2 rounds, but he almost finishes them at the end of the first, wins the second. He's up 2. He just needs to play stay away, really. But it's a fight, man. It's a fight, and he gets clipped. Maddalena has got big expectations. He's supposed to fight good guys. He's coming off a really solid win over Randy Brown. He's supposed to fight on last week's pay-per-view. It gets canceled. Media, the fans, uproar. Everyone's upset about losing him. That they basically take a guy that otherwise is going to be on the Contender Series and throw him in there. So he's got high expectations to go out there and perform. But if this thing gets to a second, third round, maybe Bassil's able to catch him. I like what I see out of Jack, man. Combination punching, volume for days, a little bit reckless, sure. That's what makes him a little bit dangerous if you're going to bet a big money line on him. But I think he's got solid cardio, solid output, solid striking. Someone that I do believe will eventually rise into that top 10, maybe top 5 kind of contender range and continuously get better. So I got to back him here. The same way I was going to back him last week. The same way I would back him against most of the guys in the division, let alone a guy making his debut. It's a tough task. Evan Cuts is actually a badass. Again, he had beat Reagan Penn, BJ Penn's brother. He's trains under Johnny Bedford, former UFC veteran, Ultimate Fighter veteran, BKFC champion. Evan Cuts is a badass. BJJ black belt as well. But this is a hell of a jump fighting him to now fighting a guy like Jack Maddalena. The other thing I'd say is that you probably got to watch the weigh-ins on this thing for sure, because you got someone who's coming in short notice, and the expectation is he needs to drag him into some deeper waters. So maybe check out the Friday weighs and see what you like best. But I would say, again, my pick is going to be Maddalena. But if you are going to go the other way, I think you take this as a live bet after the first round. Get a much better price on it. And yeah, could win. Going to win. If he does win, probably later on.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, he doesn't have like such crazy power that he's going to be a big problem in round 1. It's like his last knockout, he was landing some good shots over the course of it, but it was kind of like the accumulation of those strikes that put Cuts away in round 3. Moving on, we've got Evan Elder taking on Genaro Valdez, minus 300 for Elder, plus 250 for Valdez. Who you got here, bud?
This is a really fun fight. Like, I think it's probably going to end up knockout. Both guys are going to stand toe to toe. They're going to slug it out. I got to go with Evan Elder. He's kind of had a couple bad beats in the sense that 26-year-old prospect from Kilcliff FC, the sky looks the limit for him. It looks like he's going to be real good. Undefeated as a professional, jumps into the UFC against Preston Parsons, and he moves up a weight class. So he takes that fight at 170 pounds. He's not a welterweight, but of course, when the UFC comes calling, you're going to take it. Now, Elder is very much a striker. Parsons is very much a wrestler. So not only is he moving up a weight class on super short notice, but he's not a good stylistical matchup for him. I thought he had moments. You know, he showed some cardio. He was able to last the 15 minutes, but ultimately the takedown defense kind of his demise. Now his next fight drops down to 155, and he gets Nazim Sadykhov. Good fight, banger of a fight. I thought his striking looked good. I think at 155, definitely where he should be. He's a kid that's making some improvements and is going to start filling out that frame. Argument that he's up to nothing. Argument it's 1-1. Argument that he's winning. Either way, fight gets stopped due to a cut stoppage in the third round, and he gets that win kind of taken away from him. He's super upset. He's willing to get back in there. It's a cut stoppage, so it's not like he got knocked out, not like he had any, huge injury. He's just yet to get his first UFC win, so he's knocking at the door, and I think it's only a matter of time, and I think this is likely his spot. Genaro Valdez, banger. He wants to stand. He wants to throw down. He came in against Patrick White on the Contender Series as like a minus 600 favorite and damn near lost because he stands in front of you and he throws down. It's a dangerous style. Now, we always talk about Mexicans and their durability. And again, this guy does have some decent durability, and then he gets dropped all of the time and gets back up most of the time. But when you're putting yourself in that bad of a spot and you're getting hit that frequently against decent punchers, not going to go good. Now, we talked earlier in the show about Matt Frevola. Sneaky good power, this guy. Well, Valdez tries to stand in front of Matt Frevola, doesn't go good, gets knocked out. But his next fight against Natan Levy looked a lot better. Didn't get knocked out. But the volume, he's a pure volume guy that kind of just leaves himself recklessly out there. He wants to throw down. He wants to have a fight of the night. He wants to give you a tough scrap. But ultimately, he's just too defensively liable. And then in that Natan Levy fight, the 6 takedowns, he still landed 49 significant strikes for the record. If you stand with him, he'll land 100. He'll land over 100. He will throw down. But he's got huge lapses in his takedown defense. So when I think about Evan Elder, I think not a great wrestler, but he could also take down Valdez. That could be a path for him. But if he stands in front of Valdez and throws down with him, they're both going to land. And I feel like Elder's got a little more power, a little more durability. So I feel like at some point he's going to clip him and put him away. If you got one of these books that offers you these, fight of the nights, crazy props, which are all bullshit anyways, because Trevor Peake got robbed on one a few weeks back. Who knows who wins fight of the night? It's all crap. It's all crap. If you can get like a crazy good price tag, and this card's got a lot of good fight of the night contenders on it, this one's kind of flying under the radar, and I think it's a banger for a round and a half, maybe 2 rounds. Elder at some point catches him and puts him away. So got to go with Evan Elder to get the first UFC win. A dangerous fight, a dangerous, volatile fight.
I'm with you. I don't love the minus 300, but I do know, at least with Evan Elder, that, it was a cut that kind of took him out of that fight, not the fact that he got knocked out clean, and he was taking on a much more technically sound and stout opponent. He was exposed a little bit against Preston Parsons, but that was in the wrestling department. I think both of these guys just stand and trade. The only, and I bet you that the fight of the night bonus or whatever, the price on that is probably going to be pretty good. This will be one that sneaks under the radar, but I would say buyer beware. Dana doesn't really watch the prelims anymore. But the only saving grace here is that he can't just based on how we think the main event of this card is going to play out, it's probably not going to be fight of the night worthy. So he can't just just hand it to the main event, which he tends to do when he's not really watching the fights. That's probably a lot less likely than Emmett versus Topuria. It could be sneaky, and it'll probably be 14, 15, 18-1, something like that. It'll be pretty wide. The other fights that I think would have a chance of fight of the night honors like that would be Sadykhov versus McKinney. But the problem with that is that McKinney can't really fight long enough. So it's you kind of have to get a fight of the night to work into a minute and a half, which is possible. but probably unlikely. The winner of that fight probably gets a performance bonus for their finish. The other fight that would jump off would be like Azaitar versus Prado. Could end up being like a fight of the night contender. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think there's too many other places on this card. Maybe our next fight, which is prize picks on Elder. 40.5 significant strikes. Seems kind of low.
It seems low. I would think he hits higher, but I think they're looking at someone's getting knocked out. Like maybe he doesn't quite need 40, but I think it's a banger for as long as it lasts.
10 minutes. I mean, the fight time there is 10 minutes. Like that's what they've got the fight time listed at on this. I mean, over 1.5 is minus 155. So the over 1.5 is what has been getting, is the side that's been moving ever so slightly. There's a little bit of buyback on that. I don't know. I think 40.5 significant strikes is pretty low for Evan Elder here. So I'll be taking the more over on prize picks there. Azat Maxim takes on Tyson Nam, minus 420 for Maxim, plus 320 for Tyson Nam. I mean, maybe there's an argument that this could end up being a fight of the night if Tyson Nam can, keep this fight on the feet and they slug it out. Like Maxim, I've watched a few of his fights. He's got he's kind of a jack of all trades. Like I wouldn't say that like he's not some sort of like Dagestani powerhouse with his wrestling. I know he's from Kazakhstan. But he's got enough wrestling mixed into the bag there. But he's very, very light on his feet, quick hands in and out of the pocket. He seems like a very, very solid all-around flyweight, to be perfectly honest. Tyson Nam a little bit long in the tooth. This line is pretty wide. Obviously, Maxim is 16-0, but how many guys of UFC quality, whatever UFC quality means these days, has he really taken on in his lead up to this fight? Probably not many. Like some of these records don't look all that bad. 6-0, 5-1, 5-0. Last guy he took on was 8-0 coming into that fight. Maybe it's not as far off as I think. The biggest question for Tyson Nam is like Tyson Nam typically when he wins his fights, he's gonna knock you out. There hasn't been any sign of Azat Maxim taking or not being able to take a punch, but maybe he just hasn't been tested enough yet. I'll take Maxim, but you know me, minus 420 is just like there's not much for me to do with that number. I'm not doing too many parlays and stuff like that, but I like what I see from him. I think he's a decent-looking prospect, and as long as his chin holds up, I think he can win at literally any range here. So I understand why he's the favorite. I'm just unexcited with the fact that he's an 80% winner based on the numbers here. What do you think?
Yeah, this is Cody's classic apple pie shitter of the week. A guy that I put on the top ticket. He's minus 400. He's undefeated. He's got a real nice looking record. He comes in, and it turns out he's your next Zalga Zumagulov, who, for the record, also had a really good record prior to coming to the UFC. So his wrestling, not all that world class. Solid, and he's able to get down regional level opponents quite well. His grappling, his jiu-jitsu, all fairly good for a regional show level. His striking, way more volume than Tyson Nam, who's very gun-shy and more of a counterpuncher. I think that he dances circles around him in terms of the numbers, and I think that he can outpoint him. Thing is that you can watch Maxim get absolutely floored, not knocked out, but knocked down a couple times on the regional scene. It's 2 years ago, still a work in progress. He's 26 at the time, but he leaves himself out there to get hit. And there's the one thing with Tyson Nam. Tyson Nam has a 100% takedown defense in the UFC. He trained at Team Quest in Portland, Oregon, despite the fact that he's Hawaiian, for the record. He spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon grinding and wrestling. His takedown defense has always been pretty good. And although his numbers are very, very low in terms of volume, his power is killer. Now, big knockout over Ode Osborne a couple of fights back. You do see when he wins, his win condition is usually the knockout. Now, these tough wrestler boxers, they can stuff a takedown and they can land that nuclear shot. They're always going to be dangerous. And they're always going to be dangerous when you're betting them at long odds. Because if Maxim comes out here, shoots a couple takedowns half-heartedly, doesn't get them, and has to stand volume, 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 and then eventually you run into something. On the regional scene, you can afford to get dropped and work your way back up. Against Tyson Nam, not a whole lot of guys get back up. So it's a dangerous proposition. But ever so slightly, yeah, Tyson Nam's fighting as a 125-pound fighter, and yet he's 40 years old. It's not like a very forgiving weight class. It's all speed. He doesn't have a whole lot of speed. He doesn't have a whole lot of, he's got solid cardio because he paces himself, but not a whole lot of volume, not a whole lot of speed. And quite literally, his last fight, he I wouldn't say all the way shot, but he looked fairly shot to me against Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva worked him over, hurt him, got him down, was able to take his back and rear naked choke him. I feel like it's just eventually that point of his career where he's not quite as sturdy as he used to be. But all these guys, just like Morgan Freeman in the movie Million Dollar Baby, they got one more left in them. You don't know when it's going to be, but they got one more left in them. Tyson Nam does pose a threat, especially at these odds. He's live. But me, it's just the way it is. I'm gonna have to buck up and go Maxim. I don't think first ticket, maybe first ticket, maybe second ticket. Again, there's a lot more research and I gotta watch weigh-ins as well. But he'll probably be up there. The only saving grace is if he gets melted. It's early in the card. Maybe you want to rebuild if you want to go that route. This card's so greasy, I don't necessarily recommend rebuilding. But at least it's early enough in the card. I gotta go with youth, speed, agility, volume. His wrestling's okay. Maybe he's the first guy to go out there and take Nam down. And a prime Nam gives him all types of trouble. A 39-year-old, 40-year-old Nam maybe still gives him some trouble, but not enough for me to go the other side. So I got to go with the UFC debutant to get the win.
Yeah, nobody's taking down Tyson Nam, eh?
No, solid, solid. Now, he's taken on some decent wrestlers, but not a ton of them, like in the UFC anyways. He also fought in Russia for a few years. The guy's pretty tough.
I mean, if you're gonna bet like Nam and you want to take a shot that like maybe Max or as that Maxim hasn't really taken damage against like an elite, like a higher level of competition. I mean, there's like plus 600, and I highly doubt he's gonna win by submission, but there's like plus 650 on Nam by knockout. It's not the craziest thing. It's not the craziest thing. Not the craziest thing. All right, moving on. We've got Alexander Munoz taking on Carl Deaton. Minus 165 for Munoz, who I forgot had a job because it's been over 2 years.
Wait for the next fight.
And he takes on Carl Deaton. Going to be after plus 145. I mean, I forgot that Munoz was a thing. Like a thing that was on the UFC roster. I was just like, oh, like I assumed the guy maybe had retired. What was it? It was April 7th, over 2 years now. April 17th, 2021. Was the last time that he was out there. Wrestling is always solid. Volume is not horrible. He's a decent enough fighter, and I think I understand why he's the favorite here. Carl Deaton, not much of a wrestler whatsoever. Taken down pretty much immediately by Selecki last time out. Wasn't able to do very much off of his back. And, was able to fight out of submissions, but didn't really have much of a get-up game. If Munoz comes out here, plays that game plan, we've seen him be able to wrestle. He could definitely win this fight with relative ease, to be perfectly honest. So Munoz, stick to the wrestling. Don't be dumb. Durability has always been pretty solid on his side. Stick to the wrestling. Hold position. Rinse and repeat. Don't really hang out at range and just swing hammers with this guy. I mean, I think maybe if he was fighting more often than like the last 2 years, we would actually have a much worse price on him here. If the guy who's, he's consistently been able to put up wrestling or take his opponents down, shows up here and sticks to that type of game plan, minus 165 doesn't seem that bad. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on it, though, because that large of a layoff, I have no idea what this guy's been up to. Definitely going to wait for weigh-ins before I do anything with this fight. What's your thought here?
Yeah, that's obviously the biggest concern is that he's been off for a really long time. He's been off because he's been specifically injured. And I always say it, a guy took 2 years off, guy took 3 years off, but he's still relatively young. They only got better from here. And I'm sure that is the case for Alex Munoz, but he's 33 years old. So he's not jumping back as some refined prospect ready to make a second kick at the can. He's coming back as a 33-year-old man who's been off for almost 3 years, and we just don't know where he's at. Banged up, injured, thankfully out of a good gym. Obviously going to be in shape. In terms of training with that level of training partner, yeah, he's going to come in ready to go. But yeah, can he go 3 rounds? I'm not so sure about that. When you watch him on the Contender Series, he ragdolls Nick Newell with his wrestling. Thing is, Nick Newell only has one hand. So to not finish him, I don't know. That one always stuck out to me, that here's a guy that can wrestle, but is not going to necessarily put those other pieces together. And then him versus Nazareth Hakparas took him down, got a takedown going, but otherwise just took a serious beating. And then him and Luis Pena wins the first round. I thought he won the second round. It ends up being a split decision win for Luis Pena, but Munoz gassed out in the third. Had taken him down 4 times in the first 2 rounds. Third round, tired, overextending, gets beat up. Probably still won the fight. Unfortunately, judges disagree. The second round was kind of, the toss-up, I suppose. So 3 years later, because his last fight's Luis Pena, 3 years later, is his cardio any better? Probably not. Massive ring rust, injuries that he's had to work around, 33 years old, relatively past your prime as far as professional athletics goes. Yeah, or is he just a 2-round guy? Thing is, 2 rounds might be all you need here against Carl Dean, because his takedown defense doesn't seem to be there. He shouldn't be in the UFC. He's at best, mid-level regional scene fighter from Michigan who happened to be training full-time in Las Vegas. Needs somebody. Deaton's licensed. Deaton won his last fight. Throw him in there against Joe Selecki. And I remember the first round, clear as day. Well, of course, I rewatched it not that long ago, too. But the first round, Joe Selecki is on his back for, 4 minutes. And the commentators, the whole time, unbelievable, the defense by Carl Dean. This guy is the real deal. After the first round, the second starts, the little Twitter thing, whoa, Carl Deaton stock's going up with that round. How do you figure he had a guy on his back for 4 minutes? Oh, but he survived. And then the second round, he gives up his back and then he gets rear naked choked. Tough call. Alex Munoz takes him down. Alex Munoz out-grapples him. The Alex Munoz that last fought 3 years ago is better than Carl Deaton in pretty much every aspect. The guy that's coming back 3 years later, even if he's made slight improvements, should be enough. So I think the takedowns come early. I think they come often. I think he takes his back. I don't know that the rear naked choke comes super easy. Selecki had to work for it. Let's face it. He spent like 8 minutes on the guy's back. Joe Selecki's got a nasty rear naked choke. Deaton's only been previously submitted twice in his career, so maybe he can survive. But he's going to drop those first 2 rounds. And in the third, he'll have to go for it, just like Luis Pena. He'll have to bang it out, and he'll have to hope that some judge gave him some round that he didn't deserve. But I think he's going to get out-grappled those first 2. If the first round is all Munoz, and the second round is mostly Munoz, but Deaton is able to land some shots in the last 45 seconds, and bad judges are going to give you a fight based on the last 45 seconds. Don't know why they do that, but they do. Yeah, then maybe you take Deaton live. It's 1-1 going into the third, and there's plus money available on Deaton. Yeah, maybe that's when you pull the trigger on him. But I think he's going to just get soundly out-grappled for the first 2 at least, and he either A, gets submitted, or B, drops the first 2, doesn't knock him out in the third, and overall loses the fight on a 29-28.
Yeah, what about Munoz takedowns 2.5? What do you think?
I'm going to lean towards the over just because his top game doesn't seem like super sick. And I think, with Joe Selecki, who is a human backpack, he still did make it to the second and give up 2. So in Munoz's case, this probably makes it to at least the second. Does he get 3 takedowns, which hits you that over? I'm going to say yeah. The other thing is we're shitting on Deaton a little bit here. Anishinaabe Kid, by the way. Shout out to the Anishinaabe Nano clan. But yeah, I just don't know. The last time he's on short notice. Takes a fight on a week's notice. So yeah, we can make fun of him. We can say he didn't look all that good. But here he's got a full camp in Las Vegas with good guys and decent wrestlers. So maybe he's able to survive a little longer. Maybe he's able to get up a few times. But I think ultimately Munoz racks up 3 to 4 takedowns, which hits that over 2.5. That's why I would lead towards that over prop.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of thinking of. I just don't know if Deaton will be able to get up, but there's 3 rounds in a fight, and Munoz hasn't exactly been a finishing machine. I would expect him to at least, if there's 3 rounds, I would expect him to get at least 3 takedowns. Get a takedown in each round. Whether he's actually able to hold him down, I don't know. He could go way over that number. if he gets finished for the first time in his career, so be it. Yeah, I like the over there. There's only a few spots on Prize Picks that had my attention this week, and that was one of them. All right, and finally we got the money fight, Cody. Eileen Perez taking on Ashley Evans Smith, minus 220 for Eileen Perez, plus 185 for Ashley Evans Smith. Money has pounded in on Eileen Perez, the self-proclaimed money fighter of the division. I can understand it. Ashley Evans Smith, we haven't seen in a long time. You probably did well if you got in early on this, but it's like at minus 220, I can't really justify getting on board here. What has Eileen Perez really shown to us in the UFC? There's just the Egger fight, right? And and the Egger fight is like she was not really winning any exchanges there. Then they're on the regional scene with her. The fight that she had what was that? Tamira's Vidal, who's come into the UFC and did well. And in fairness to her, that fight against Tamira's Vidal, where she ended up losing, was actually like a disqualification, but she was dominating that fight. So credit where credit's due. I can understand why people moved in on this number, but at minus 220, it's like you got to show me more than for me to throw my money down. I'll still pick her, but there's no way I am touching minus 220 with a 10-foot pole. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I would have to go with Eileen Perez. I see why the money's moving in on her. At some point, you'd have to say, geez, Pat Mayo's model is going to start coming into play here. I wouldn't want to have some overexposure here, but I get it. If you look at Ashley Evans Smith and like the timeline of her last 10 years, it's crazy. This is a girl wrestled in college at like a fairly high level. She comes into MMA with a wrestling base. She's scrappy. She's tall. I've met her in real life, good, well put together athlete and fairly good shape. She beats Fallon Fox. That's kind of her claim to fame. I don't want to be rude, but she beat Fallon Fox, massive feather in her ear. She signs to the UFC, I think, like 6 or 8 months later. That was 10 years ago. She's never been active. She's never kept a regular schedule. It's never gone all that well for her. I mentioned she comes in with a wrestling background, and yet she pretty much gets out-wrestled by all of her opponents. She went 2 for 10 against Andrea Lee in takedowns. Not really that good of a wrestler. But, she goes through the motions. She gets chopped away. She gets beat up here and there. I don't know. Shit happens. Then she starts dating this guy named Jules the Jackal, Julian Rebo. He's most famous because he, remember that video? It's like tattooed guy gets beat up by Nerd, and it's Ben Nguyen. And Ben Nguyen punches out the guy. He's tatted face to toe. He was dating Jessie Jess for a little bit. He ends up trying to like physically assault her, and she head kicks him. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Oh, so Ashley Evans Smith dates Jules Jackal after all of this stuff. Like, she knew exactly who he was. And I see this thing with Felice Herrig where she's like, oh, me and Carlos Esparza like reached out to her because we're on The Ultimate Fighter and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this guy's a piece of shit. Don't go for it. And it's like, oh, she does anyways. That falls apart. COVID happens. Then there's this video. Her and her boyfriend, her new boyfriend end up going to this person's place and stealing a bunch of their like PPE. Going out there and like masks. They had stuff on the deck. Like, Google it if you want to. But she's like human trash. Her whole life is spiraling out of control. Okay. So what does an ex-athlete who's 35, now 36 years old, who hasn't had a fight in 3 years, who's irrelevant within the division, who somehow, I don't even know she's still on the roster, okay? What does someone like that do? Well, I met her in real life. I can tell you, decent looks. So she starts on OnlyFans. Launches an OnlyFans account. She's making some bank. I think the UFC at some points, like, you got to take a fighter, you're off the roster. And now she's jumping in there against Eileen Perez. She comes from a wrestling background, but I just don't know that the wrestling's there. At her best, one would figure she's rugged. She'll stand in front of you. She can throw a little bit, and she can wrestle a little bit. Eileen Perez is a little too green that maybe Rebel Girl Ashley Evans Smith can go out there and give her some serious problems. But coming off 3 years with the stuff that her personal life's been going through, 8 fights in the last decade, Eileen Perez just wants it a lot more, fresher, younger, hungrier, and very physically strong. Egger's a big girl who's a judoka black belt and has nasty grappling, has fought at the ADCCs, has grappled Gabby Garcia, physically strong girl. I don't know that that's the case. It'll be as much of a problem grappling Egger as it would be Ashley Evans Smith. So I think Perez just mashes her into the cage, takes her down when she needs to. If not, just keep it in the clinch, rough her up, test her that cardio, and show her why at 36 it's hard to jump off a 3-year-long layoff. So I also have to go with Eileen Perez. But of course, as the money line continues to grow and grow, at some point you're going to have to decide if the risk is worth the reward.
Well, Perez inside the distance, bro.
Inside the distance most definitely has a shot. Ashley Evans Smith's typically very durable. Went the distance with Norma Dumont, who's a decision
3
fighter.
years.
Andrea
How
Lee,
much has she been training?
All fair points. All fair points. And I don't think she's been training all that much. I think she's largely banged up. I don't know if this is a cash grab. And then the other thing that you got to look at is her entire career. She fought Beck Rawlings, a 115er, at 125. She had fought Ketlin Vieira at 135, but she's outsized at 135. She lost to Ketlin Vieira. She lost to Sarah Moras. Okay. She drops down to 125 and beat Beck Rawlings. She tried to fight Andrea Lee at 126 and then was like, I can't make this weight anymore. Comes back up to 135 against Norma Dumont. And that's the last time we've seen her. If she had made some significant improvements, that'd be one thing, but I'm banking on she did it. The speed, the athleticism, all of that started to decline. The ring rust is going to be there. And Eileen Perez is flying under the radar because nobody really knows who she is all that much. She's 0-1 in the UFC. And when you watch her regional show tape, I would say it's in a gym, but I've seen good fights in a gym. This is it's like a basement. I don't even know. It's not high level MMA. And yet the girl she gets disqualified against also ends up in the UFC and wins her debut. So I keep saying this a lot now lately. It's like there's a lot of fighters from Argentina, from Venezuela, from Peru, and the training is not the highest level. The facilities aren't the greatest, but they are very, very physically strong. They're want hungry. It. And they're so hungry, and there's a crop of them coming up every week. So Ribovics was a badass last week. I expect Eileen Perez to be the Argentinian badass this week.
All makes sense to me. All right, we are just about out of time. But before we go, Code, in with the PRP.
Yeah, again, not feeling great about it, but I think we'll be able to tie something together. We're going Holly Holm. We're going with Jung Young Park. We're going to go with Norma Dumont. Oh, man, Dumont. We're going to go with Ottman Azaitar, dog number 1. Terrance McKinney, dog number 2. Tucker Lutz, dog number 3. Vikoriia Dudakova. Definitely bet that thing after the first round. I don't like that minus 200. We're going to go with Melk Costa. We're going to go with Jack Maddalena. We're going to go with Evan Elder, Azat Maxim, Alexander Munoz, and Eileen Perez. So 13 fight card, 3 underdogs, a lot of greasy plays in between. It's all about getting the right order, and that's what I'm going to look to do. So yeah, again, the tape study doesn't stop. Friday's weigh-ins, try to get as much info as we can, and then try to put the right configuration together, right? The right bout order.
Yep. My favorite 3 plays on Prize Picks. People have been asking for this type of stuff on the Twitter machine. Costa, less than 1.5 takedowns. Elder, more than 40.5 significant strikes. And Munoz, more than 2.5 takedowns. Yeah, it's slim pickings out there. Haven't made any bets yet. But, I think weigh-ins this week, low-level card, a lot of maybe untrustworthy folk are going to be pretty important to my process this week. So that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.